Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who Read Stuff. While we enjoy television and movies and all that stuff, we like to dive into books, which are the source material for a lot of the things that we enjoy on the big and small screen. We're continuing our discussion of Mistborn, the Final Empire. Tonight we cover chapters 26 and 27. What's going to happen now that the skaa army's been decimated, and now that the house war that Kelsier started is igniting. Feel free to subscribe and stick around.
Hello and welcome to the Doctors Who Read Stuff. My name is Chris.
I'm Chip.
And I am Brian.
Today we're covering Mistborn, the Final Empire.
Chapters 26 and 27.
That's right.
Yeah. We're coming near the end of this.
Yeah, it's coming up fast, and things are really starting to happen in the book.
Well, there was, and I would have to go pull it up, but there was a comment, and there's a term for this because apparently this is like a Sanderson thing, where you get like 3/4 or more of the book is just this slow build, and then everything just avalanches at once, and this is where we're at.
So what was the term? Do you remember?
I will look.
Wasn't it like a Sanderlanch or
I will
something like that?
I will look it up while you do the summary.
And even we should mention that these are the first two chapters in the part 3 section of the book.
Oh, yeah.
Dancers in a Sea of Mist.
That's part 4, isn't it?
Oh, is it part 4?
I think it was part 4.
Wow, I'm living in the past. All right, you continue.
So,
I'll verify.
Sanderlanch.
Was it a Sanderlanch?
Yeah,
That's right.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was right.
And that was
Can't believe that.
Spencer Miller brought that to our attention, so thank you.
That's cool.
And it is part 4.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do a quick synopsis, and then we'll dig into kind of what we thought of it. So chapter 26, the crew's talking about the future of the job now that the skaa army's been decimated, and how it currently looks like a total failure. Spook bursts in and announces a meeting in the Fountain Square, executions. The crew head to the square and bribe someone in a building around the square to let them have the roof to themselves. The crew watch many skaa murdered. Their blood is emptied into the fountain, and the fountains run red. Kelsier tries to convince them that we need to continue the job. Chapter 27 continues after the crew returns to Club's shop and plan their next moves. Sazed delivers a message from Marsh telling Kelsier where the two can meet, in an area of Luthadel called the Twists. Kelsier and Vin head to observe the meeting point hours before the meeting, and as they wait and talk about the 11th metal. Kelsier also explains a little bit about ferrochemy and gives Vin some gold to burn since she had never tried that one before, and it's the sister metal to adium. It's her first experience with it, and it's kind of weird. At the meeting, Marsh describes the soothing stations that the Ministry has set up throughout Luthadel, and also says that Inquisitors are mortal and can die of things like old age.
Fascinating.
So there's that.
Whew, there was so much in both of these chapters.
So what really kind of struck me at the beginning here was that they, were just coming off the heels of the army getting decimated, and everyone is just like, we're screwed, this is done, there's no way we can possibly pull this off. Holy smokes, what did you give us, Brian?
Milkman Stout.
Awesome.
Confluence Brewing it here in Des Moines, Iowa.
Wow.
Thank
you,
you,
Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian.
But yeah, everybody's just like, oh man, this is done. We're finished.
Yeah.
This can't happen. And what's interesting is that Vin walks in on Clubs, Docs, Ham, and Breeze, and they're having this conversation, and they're bummed out. And like this is after the pewter dragging.
Yeah, so this is shortly after that.
This is like the first time she's really out of bed, I think.
Yeah.
And the first thing she asks for is an ale, and they're like, it's like 10 o'clock in the
It's not
morning.
even noon
What are you
yet.
doing? But they all want to know what she thinks, and this is strange to her because she's like, why do they care what I think about this? So she's still not used to the fact that she's been kind of this respected and important member of the crew, which is
It's
kind of a neat realization for
Yeah.
her. So,
But they're not in there for very long. I mean,
well, Kelsier pops in.
oh yeah, that's right.
But is
Yeah.
this the chapter where they're having the meeting and she kind of looks out in the hallway and just realizes that she's a part of all this, and that she kind of appreciates that she is a part of something bigger and more important, and that the old Ven would have been out in the hallway just kind of watching and not really participating. So she's
like
really
observing,
evolved as a
blending
character.
in, and just yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a chapter of realization for her, where she realizes how
Yeah.
much she's grown and how much she's a valued part of what's happening
I think
here.
in my
So-
notes I said that, or somewhere I read that this was 15 days after the pewter drag. So,
Mhm.
Yep.
and Vin's head still hurts, so she's still
Yeah.
recovering from that. The thing that struck me on this chapter is it's a very visual chapter. Once we get to the executions and they're in the square and they've got these fountains that are, I assume, are pretty beautiful, and all of a sudden
Before
they're
we
running
jump
red
to
with,
that spot, though, what's
Yeah.
interesting after Kelsier comes into that meeting is
Oh, yeah.
Breeze tries to soothe him.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, and Kelsier
that was-
does
yeah.
not take well to that.
No.
I was like, ooh, that's...
that was like 5 chapters in. They're like, you do not soothe people on this team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they talk to Kelsier, and they accuse him of using them to grow his own reputation. They're like, you know what? You said there was going to be boxings in this. We were all going to get rich. And all you're doing is just growing your reputation. I mean, at this point, I think it is both safe to say and expected to assume that everybody is just running and fueling on pure emotion.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I
Well,
wanted to
after-
point that out because I thought that was very interesting.
After a big military loss, they're kind of at odds with each other.
Yeah.
But understandably so. But they're kind of broken out of it by the call to go gather in the square.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is where I was kind of picking up.
Yep.
there, but
Please continue.
no, I was just going to say that I thought the visuals in this were really strong with the fountains. You know, I assume that there are these beautiful fountains that are running clear, and then as the executions take place, the blood spills into
Yeah.
the fountains, and eventually the fountains are running red. And just, I don't know, the visual of that was pretty striking. I really liked the descriptive elements that Sanderson used here.
So there were a couple of things that were really interesting in here, and I guess I'll start with the one that happened first chronologically, but just the simple fact that there were hundreds of thousands of people in this square, and they were still being overpowered by the
Lord
it felt-
By the Lord Ruler.
Yeah.
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 Like
despite the smoking,
he was,
despite everything
he was
else.
like
Mhm.
he was exerting his will. Was it soothing?
Yeah.
Is that what he's doing?
Was it
Yeah, but
soothing
then
or rioting?
But
or-
then, because then
yeah.
Kelsier
Soothing. It was
Kelsier
soothing.
tries to counteract that, at least for the rooftop that they're at,
With
and
the rioting.
and Vin
And
can
Vin-
still
yeah.
feel it
And
through
Vin ends up
the
helping.
smoking. Yeah,
But yeah, they made an interesting something caught my eye here because as they're observing before the Lord Ruler shows up, like let's see, so it's page 443 for me. But it's about the Obligators and the Inquisitors.
is this where they see Vin's father?
It is.
It is, yeah. they
And I
point-
thought that was interesting too. That
Ow.
he's not just an obligator; he is the Lord Prelin.
Yes.
Boy, that was a twist I didn't
yeah,
see
that
coming.
he is basically the head of the ministry.
But
That's cool.
but
Yeah.
Sanderson says when looking at the Obligators, regular ones in gray, Inquisitors in black, and they're referring to the Inquisitors and the Obligators as almost cousins.
Mhm.
So there's like a relation there.
Yeah, almost like maybe it's like an
So-
evolution thing from a
Yeah.
obligator that they can
Yeah.
evolve into an inquisitor.
So I thought that was pretty interesting because they don't really say a lot about
Yeah.
the relationship and the hierarchy of Obligators, Inquisitors, the Lord Ruler, things like that. I
Right.
mean, obviously, the ruler's at the top, but
Yeah, it said something about the higher the position, the finer the robes, and
yeah. Yeah.
and that's when she saw her father.
Yeah.
This is kind of so. The second point was how much it struck me on. They went through all the detail of the robes and just how fine the vestments were.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, what was the Lord Ruler doing the entire time during all of the executions?
He never got out of the
He
carriage.
just kind of hung
did
out
he?
the carriage.
And-
Yeah.
but why? If I had to speculate,
Okay.
I'm almost wondering if he's either like completely deformed or like there's some physical limitation that he has. Like he's been
That he
presented
doesn't want to be seen.
exactly.
Like Sauron or something. That,
Yeah.
he can't, doesn't really physically take form, but
Or Voldemort.
Yeah,
or that.
Before he kills Robert
Yeah.
Pattinson. Yeah.
But I just get this weird sense that they've built him up so much in the story that he is a god, that what happens if he actually is crippled, or if he is...
Yeah, but if you think about like the epigraphs and things like that, where it talks about him going in and facing the deepness and having to do it alone,
maybe
he could very well have come away from that, broken.
Yeah,
so that's a
I don't know.
thought.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And the other thing with the epigraphs and just kind of going that way, I mean, he had good intentions there. He broke bad somewhere, and maybe there was a physical manifestation of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of a cool thought.
But they talked about like the reasoning for the executions. It was not the army. It wasn't members of the army that had been captured. It wasn't their wives or their children. It just was random people. Just to remind everybody
who's in charge. Yeah, and I guess I don't remember how many, if they said it was just hundreds of people, though.
Yeah, I don't think they gave an exact number.
But they were doing them 4 at a time, and it was a couple of hours, it sounded like. So.
And the fountains spraying red was an intentional device because there were so many people, like the skaa all are supposed to come and attend these executions to observe these reminders. And there are so many of them that the ones way in the back can't see the square, but they can see the red spurting fountains. And that is so that was an intentional design to let the ones in the back know that you got to knock it off and keep your head down, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought it was interesting too, with kind of the skaa army decimated, the house wars kind of really heating up, and I think we hit that in a couple of chapters here. I think the next chapter we talk some more about that and kind of the plan to keep that flaming, the house war flaming. But it was interesting to see Kelsier still has hope, that he's got them on that rooftop and he's given a rally speech, and it's like, what's the plan now? Okay, so they don't really have an army to take on to take over Craddockshaw and take over the Adium or whatever that is. They've got the house war going, but do they have enough people to really do anything at this point? So what really is Kelsier's motivation?
What's the plan?
I know his motivation. What's the plan, though? Because his motivation really feels like it's simply revenge against the noble houses and the Lord Ruler. But is there more to it, or is it as simple as that at that point? It's just like overthrowing the Lord Ruler is kind of the thing now.
Yeah.
So should we move on to...
One thing about the executions, though, is that Vin is looking at the nobles that are assembled, and she notices that, some of them are just like joking, not paying attention, lounging. Back, there are some, and I think she said maybe it was like a third, maybe looked like horrified at what was happening, which lets you know that, there are some that are as bad as Kelsier thinks, but there are also some that more like Vin believes Aelin to be, that
find it troubling and abhorrent.
Yeah. So that kind of vindicated some of her feelings, I think.
Well, the thing I like about Brandon Sanderson so far is he's not painting in black and white. He's doing a lot of kind of these shades of gray where you can't tell, who really is the bad guy. And I like some of the devices that keep this moving, because to be honest, I was kind of questioning Kelsier's motives throughout some of this as well. It was like, from when he was throwing his abilities so that, the army appeared stronger than they were. This is all for his own ego, but this really helped center me back on track that, all right, this really is a problem within the society.
You said something that made me just kind of think, and I know this is dangerous, but I did it anyway.
We have viewers.
You said shades of gray, and how Sanderson uses shades of gray. But let's think back
Not
50
to shades, though.
Right. Let's think
49.
back to like Tolkien. Let's think back to Lord of the Rings. There's not a lot of gray there. It's black and white.
It's very much
good,
good versus evil.
So to see kind of, and I think it's a logical progression. It's a reasonable progression in literature and in fantasy that you need.
I think in our world in general.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think nearly 100 years ago now, things were maybe a lot simpler.
Well, it was backdrop of World War II. It was Axis versus Allies. And it was good versus evil. I mean, everything was kind of painted that way from a historical perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't live through it, but everything we see is that way. But now it's kind of, between like the Vietnam era and the Gulf War and this, there's kind of there's different aspects to all of this, so it isn't just black and white.
But when you said shades of gray, I was just kind of like, Tolkien is very black and white.
He is.
Mm-hmm. Like not like pigmentally speaking.
I was gonna say he's not a Holstein cow.
No.
Or
what was the race from the original Trek series that was like
We're
half black, half white?
yeah.
It's not the Trescalans, is it? No, that's not right.
Trenzalore?
I
No.
don't know. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Toclafane. Oh, never mind. That was Doctor Who.
Sounds Doctor Who.
That's or some sort of a dessert. I'll have the Toclafane.
Yes. Anyway, moving on.
Yes, please get us back on track.
So they kind of continue. The executions are done. They have the rally speech, and then we move on to kind of the next chapter here. And this is where they're kind of back at Clubs' shop, kind of regrouping after the executions and really trying to figure out what their next move is. And a lot of it comes down to the House War.
So there was a part at the beginning of 27 where Kelsier and Vin were speaking. And Vin said she felt the Lord Ruler touch her emotions even when she was burning copper.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelsier says it's impossible. But I'm thinking it probably isn't.
No.
But it kind of, we've talked about how Vin seems to be something more than just a Mistborn.
Mm-hmm.
Like she comes to it very naturally. She's very powerful, more powerful than she should be. There's this. Her father is the High Praelin. We still don't know who her mother is, but I mean, like, everything's pointing to. We get little nuggets that say that she's something more than just what she appears.
Right.
So
Like the Kwisatz Haderach. Or
right. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, too, with the whole House War, how, we had the army and we had some of these other things going on where Kelsier was really involved, but the whole House War and Vin attending these noble events really just puts her right in the middle of a lot of things that are going on, and she's really critical to kind of spreading these rumors and kind of playing the houses against each other. Yeah. And she's really starting to realize it now, and she's becoming a lot more comfortable in this role, kind of interacting with the nobility. I think she likens the nobility to the thieving crews, and once she kind of makes that connection that hey, they're no different than the kind of the pecking order and the thieving crews, so I know this. I can go in and I can play this part, and I know what I'm doing now. So I thought that was interesting. Right. And then when they go to visit Marsh, so I think that's where there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
Kelsier, they're talking about adium and then gold. And so Vin tries to burn gold, and it's just a very weird thing. But I feel like, Kelsier basically says it doesn't really do anything, but I think it's got to do something. There's got to be something here that it's planting seeds for
Sanderson
something down the road.
Doesn't do something like this only for it to not pop up later.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And there's another one that he talks about, ferrochemy, and how a ferrochemist can only use a metal store that they themselves create. So I think we talked about.
So this terraceman can't use that terraceman's.
Yeah. So there's actually a comment coming up that I want to talk about on that too. Yep. So or a point that I'd like to talk about that.
But the meeting with Marsh does confirm what we've been speculating, that he actually did get the face tattoos.
So he's all in.
You got the full Mike Tyson.
And they actually make a point to say, look, he's going to spend the rest of his life either being thought of as an obligator or as a fraud.
Yeah, but I think that it just shows how dedicated he is to this, and he might even be more dedicated than Kelsier is to overthrowing this empire, to go to the extent that he did, and the fact that he doesn't care about recognition. He doesn't care about people seeing him do this. He's got an ulterior motive here.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because he was not receptive in those initial meetings, and then he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll infiltrate the obligators. I'll get tattoos on my face. I will risk my life to smuggle you information out and tell you about these soothing stations."
Yeah, the soothing stations.
Yeah,
that feels like very 1984 to me, just population control.
But it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are an omnipotent leader of an empire,
He's not omnipotent, though.
well, okay, fine. Poor choice of words.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a semi-potent,
He's not impotent. But, well, we don't know that.
we
I
don't
guess.
know that. He
That's
could
why
have
he was in
gotten
the
wrecked.
carriage.
He could
Yeah,
have been
maybe.
wrecked by the deepness.
That's true.
But I mean, what better way to ensure that your slaves don't rebel than to just keep them in this state of
To
just
live
like
Constant
repression?
fear and repression.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
In that terrible, terrible way.
Terrible way.
Yeah.
Do you think
Yeah.
they have soothing stations in Ankeny?
It kind of feels like it.
Sometimes it
I
does,
bet
especially
they have-
downtown.
I bet they have them in my office
I
at
think
work,
there's
actually.
some right on,
So,
at least on Grand Avenue.
but, yeah, that kind of reminds me of Harry Potter when like Ollivander says that Voldemort did great things, terrible things, but great things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Anyway,
Marsh. Yeah. So there were some other things that he. Yeah, the Inquisitors, they seem to have allomantic powers, assuming that they used to be Mistborn. They're not immortal, they do age. They're recruited from normal houses, so they're people, but they've somehow been changed.
I thought that was a really interesting twist
Yeah.
as
but
well.
they seem so powerful, just the limited exposure we've had.
Right.
to them, that it's like, how... But Marsh does say that they're not immortal, so they can be defeated, but how? I mean, it's...
So
we've not really seen weaknesses on their part yet.
the Lord Ruler supposedly defeated the deepness, say he didn't defeat it. What if somehow he kind of folded it into himself?
And he even mentioned in his logbook that it's actually sentient. That he found out that it actually is its own thing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point. You wonder if
So
somehow that
maybe he
enveloped
made
in
it like his pet puppy. I don't know.
Or it
made him.
possessed him.
Oh yeah, there's that
could be
too.
too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he's a puppet.
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but very
I'm
interesting
excited to see
stuff.
where this one's
Yeah.
going. So it's hard to kind of stop in our reading. And I know we're trying to kind of read about the same amount each week, so
Yeah,
it's hard not to keep going.
It is. Okay, so coming up next time, we're going to do chapters 28 and 29. Is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
And that's going to be dropping on Wednesday, so a week from the air date of this episode. Please click below to see the playlist with the rest of our episodes. Oh my gosh. I've got the
Brian.
belches. It's the beer's fault.
Yes.
Anyway, and also please check out our social media. Click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.
Allons-y.